Hello, my name is Covey Jones, and I'm the Big Game Coordinator for the state of Utah. I'm here to present the new statewide management plan for mule deer and go through what that entails. Whenever we write one of these management plans, we do it with a diverse group of constituents. We try to get representation from across the state, representing different groups: agriculture, sportsmen, landowners, private ranchers, and really represent what our state wants to see with mule deer. And so we did that again here with representatives again from CWUs, universities, our state and federal partners, sportsmen, and sportsmen's groups to get at how we wanted to see our deer managed in our state. So as a committee, we met together 8 different times from early March through September, and spent over 30 hours together developing this plan. The plan is proposed will be a 7-year plan, and the dates proposed to run are this year, December of 2019 to 2026. Some of the topics that we covered were issues and concerns with the current plan. What is it about the current plan that we don't like? And we also identified what is working well. What is it that we want to make sure that we don't change? To make sure that the committee's thoughts and sentiments aligned with Utah's hunting public, we did a survey where we asked 9,300 deer hunters at random how they felt about some of the ways that we manage deer. And in that, we got 2,055 respondents. The plan addresses deer populations. It addresses habitat and recreation strategies, as well as, for the first time ever, we put an appendix in the plan to address chronic wasting disease and how we'll manage that. Starting with the population management goal, the committee felt strongly that we want to expand and improve mule deer populations throughout the state, but that we wanted to do that within carrying capacities and available habitats, so not at the detriment of deer or their habitats. So the first objective was to manage mule deer populations within the state as conditions allow and bring all populations to their unit objectives. Currently, that unit objective is 453,000. So really to work towards bringing populations toward their unit objectives where we can, and to adjust those unit objectives where they're probably out of sync. If we look at the population trend since the early 90s, we can see that recently, about 2015, we hit a peak, and since then, mule deer populations have declined a little bit. We're sitting currently at about 372,000 deer, estimated, modeled across the state of Utah. Some of the strategies to reach our population goal is to set realistic and attainable unit objectives. So we rewrite unit plans on a 5-year rotational basis, or every time after range trend comes through and assesses what the habitat for mule deer looks like. So the statewide plan directs biologists to look at body condition, cause-specific mortality on deer, as well as range trend, historic population estimates, and production to set realistic population objectives. It also directs biologists to manage deer below carrying capacity to improve overall herd health, to use antlerless harvest as a primary tool to manage deer populations, and to monitor and manage chronic wasting disease in accordance with the CWD, or Chronic Wasting Disease Plan, Appendix A of this plan. When we surveyed the public to find out what the sentiment was on doe hunts, we found out that there was a lot of support. Over 80% of the public support doe hunts when it is to manage a deer population that is currently in poor health. When we asked if we were a little more proactive and started doe hunts to manage a population that we saw approaching a carrying capacity or diminishing health, still a lot of support, over 60%. When we asked our general public, and this one's a question that we hadn't asked before, how they felt about, or our hunting public, I should say, when we asked them how they felt about hunting for meat, does for meat, still over 50% supported hunting doe deer for meat. Moving to the habitat objective, the habitat goal is to conserve and improve and restore mule deer habitat throughout the state, with an emphasis on crucial ranges. The first objective is to maintain what we have, so maintain mule deer habitat throughout the state by protecting and enhancing. And the second one is to improve what we've lost, or to look at areas we can improve and do that to the tune of about 100,000 acres a year, or over 700,000 acres during the life of this plan. In order to accomplish this goal and these objectives, what we want to do is identify, map, and characterize crucial mule deer habitats, including migration routes, which we're doing now. Identify and rate threats and limiting factors within each unit plan and each population, and then work with municipalities and counties to minimize and mitigate the loss of crucial mule deer habitat and migration corridors. And another really important part of this is to support the migration or the Watershed Restoration Initiative, or WRI, which is the machine that does these habitat restoration projects. For the recreation goal, the committee felt strongly that we need to continue to provide a diversity of high-quality hunting and viewing opportunities, and do that through two objectives. One, maintain mule deer hunting that encourages a variety of quality hunting opportunities while maintaining population objectives. And two, increase opportunities to educate the public about the needs of mule deer and the importance of habitat and other limiting factors. In order to do this, we'll look at our strategies, starting with hunting. Everyone in the committee, as well as the general public, felt strongly that they liked the diversity we had in Utah with general season and limited entry opportunities, and that they wanted to see us continue managing for that. So continue to manage 11 units at 15 to 17 in general season, and 18 units for 18 to 20 bucks per 100 does. When making permit recommendations, here's some changes that biologists will consider. We've always taken into account the buck-doe ratio, the current estimate and 3-year average, as well as trend. But now biologists will also take into account adult and fawn survival from our collar studies. Another change is that permits will be recommended annually to achieve the objective. In the past plan, this said that permits will be recommended to make progress towards the objective. And now this will be a little bit more proactive management. In limited entry, the plan directs us to manage for 25 to 35 bucks per 100 does, 7 units, which is the same as the last plan. And we're making permit recommendations. Biologists will consider the following: buck-to-doe ratio, current estimate, 3-year average, and trend. The reason why we don't take into account adult survival on limited entries because these are managed for an older age class buck, and that data shows up in the buck-to-doe ratio after a couple years. So permits will be recommended to achieve the target of 30 bucks per 100 does, which is right in the middle of what we manage for. On our premium limited entry units, a lot of consistency here in how we've been managing these units in the past. So managed for 40 to 55 bucks per 100 does, and 40% of those harvested bucks are at least 5 years old or older. Baseline permits for these two units, the Paunsaugunt and the Henry Mountains, are set in this plan at 49 public draw permits on the Henry Mountains and 135 public draw permits on the Paunsaugunt. They wanted us, the committee felt strongly about continuing to provide management buck hunts where possible with a minimum of 10 permits for each unit. These are used to manage the buck-doe ratio on the units and keep them at 40 to 55 while still maintaining the quality that we want in these premium limited entry units. So recreation strategies continued, again looking at hunting. The committee felt strongly that they liked the season lengths and timing of the season, and that coincided with the survey as well for mule deer hunters. The one thing that the committee did want to see was that we established a 9-day late muzzleloader season on all general season units. This 9-day hunt will be limited entry, and we tested the waters for this in the previous plan. It was received well by a lot of our hunters. It allows us to offer more limited entry opportunity without converting general season units to limited entry. If this passes with the plan, the permits for this will be recommended at 0.5% of the total number of draw permits for the unit. If that doesn't equal at least 5 permits, then the permits will be set at 5 permits for the unit. Continue recreation strategies. We wanted to evaluate areas for the handgun, archery, muzzleloader, and shotgun hunts that we took through rural last spring. So the committee felt like we should look at areas with low deer densities that are underutilized by hunters, have a high potential for human conflict, or where we can take advantage of migratory deer populations that we don't have the ability to hunt during our current season structure with current weapon types. They also wanted the division to continue to evaluate areas for new extended archery units, to work with the Mammals Program Coordinator to have spot and stock cougar permits that overlap deer seasons, and support losing preference points if a hunter acquires a buck deer permit. On our recreation strategies for outreach, they want us to work with our partners to increase outreach efforts to promote mule deer conservation and to use electronic media, podcasts, and traditional media to educate the public about mule deer and mule deer management. That covers a lot of what the plan goes into. Now let's look at what the appendix or the chronic wasting disease plan is. First of all, an overview of what is chronic wasting disease. What is CWD? So chronic wasting disease is a nervous system disease of cervids that's caused by prions or proteins that are formed wrong. It is spread through contact with saliva, feces, carcass parts, and contaminated environments. And the important part is that last bullet point there. It's always fatal for deer. Once contracted, it is always fatal. The prevalence, since we started testing for chronic wasting disease in 2003, we found 94 deer that have it and 2 elk tested positive. And we found it in 6 wildlife management units across the states. If you look at the map on the right-hand side, the reds are positive deer and the blues are the 2 positive elk. So for surveillance, the plan recommends that we rotate sampling of clusters of 2 to 3 units every 5 years, which will allow us to test the whole state on a 5-year rotation and monitor prevalence rates and spread that way. The real goal of the CWD plan is to slow the spatial spread of chronic wasting disease, prevent further increase of chronic wasting disease in positive areas, and detect new infected areas as soon as possible. Some of the strategies to be able to accomplish that are to manage CWD positive units for a lower buck-doe ratio, or for 15 to 17, which is the lowest we manage for in Utah. To employ some late-season buck hunts to target prime age class bucks. There's a lot of data that shows that prime age class bucks are 2 times more likely to have and spread CWD. And so targeting these bucks could reduce prevalence and spread. Another option is to lower the overall population density where we have chronic wasting disease, to restrict the importation of whole carcasses from states that have chronic wasting disease, to limit when we translocate deer, to prohibit the rehabilitation of deer. Wherever you concentrate unnaturally these animals, it often becomes a problem. And to limit baiting and feeding. So in summary, this plan provides guidance and direction for managing Utah's mule deer populations. Overall, a lot of minor changes. Some of those result in more active management and more tools for biologists. Mule deer recommendations for the next 7 years will be made in accordance with this plan. And just once again, we'd like to thank all the members of the Mule Deer Committee and the public that took the survey to provide us the information we needed to rewrite this plan. Thank you.